Hi, this is Joe Apgar, Chief Operating Officer at Pelotonia, and you are listening to One Goal, a podcast from Pelotonia. The episode will begin in a moment, but during this unprecedented time with COVID-19, we hope you'll consider this important message. For the past 11 years, the Pelotonia community has gone above and beyond to make our mission of accelerating innovative cancer research possible. As we continue our critical work during this time, we must now find additional ways to mobilize our movement and leverage our collective resources for the benefit of so many impacted by COVID-19. We recently announced the following initiatives and actions to help provide support for urgent needs in our community. An initial pledge of $1 million for a new research fund at Ohio State to investigate the impact of COVID-19 on the cancer community and beyond. A new website offering ways to stay connected to the Pelotonia community while providing relevant resources, the latest information, and inspiring content. You can see this at pelotonia.org/rise. A series of community-wide live stream events featuring guests like Ethan Zahn, Dr. David Cohn, and many more inspiring individuals who are sharing their experiences and expertise to help our community. Our team is working to deploy the resources that we currently have in our warehouse to support organizations like the Mid-Ohio Food Bank, YWCA of Columbus, Dress for Success, North Community Counseling Centers, and others who need it. They've already received tents, hand sanitizers, Clorox wipes, and more. And 100% of all net profits from purchases made in the Pelotonia shop through June 1st, 2020, will be donated to support the well-being of healthcare workers at the James and the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. These funds will be used to pay for meals, beverages, and other necessary resources for those who are working around the clock to protect the health of others. These are just the many ways we are staying connected to the Pelotonia community during this time of need. You can find more of this information and make a positive impact today at pelotonia.org/rise or click the link in the show notes. Together, we rise.
Says, Dad, I haven't dreamed for a long time. That gives you hope to dream about your future and things. He says, I haven't dreamed anything, but this is the first time after he met Melissa, his now wife. He says, I can dream.
Welcome to One Goal, a podcast from Pelotonia. We're a community dedicated to funding innovative cancer research through a 3-day experience of cycling and volunteering. I'm your host and COO of Pelotonia, Joe Apgar. Your journey with us to the finish line begins now. Pelotonia is powered by an amazing community, and it's through research that we will see an end to cancer. We want to thank our major funding partners, the American Electric Power Foundation, Huntington, the L Brands Foundation, and Peggy and Richard Santulli. It's because of them in this dedicated community that all of this is possible. As an active and healthy 21-year-old, Jared Sylvester was regularly involved in many different kinds of sports and activities, basketball, running, and more. He always seemed to be moving until the day this athlete received a diagnosis that sent him down an entirely different path. I had the opportunity to sit down with Jared and his father, David, to hear about their journey firsthand. We're honored to share it with you now on this episode titled, To Dream Again.
Came about in a weird way. Cancer comes about differently for everybody, but I was pretty active back then. Worked out a lot, ran, played pickup basketball all the time. And that summer before my junior year, I was training for a half marathon. My leg just started hurting significantly, and we'd be to a point where I would pass out from pain a couple of times. Pretty abnormal from a typical workout. Didn't think that much of it. I remember specifically one time going on a 10-mile run with a couple buddies that summer, and halfway through, I was just like, man, my leg is killing me. My knee, specifically. It felt like someone had a carving knife and was just carving bone. And very uncomfortable. I just being like a former athlete, just saying, okay, I'll just push through. I don't know. It'll probably go away. Finished the run, got back to the house where I was living at that summer, and I literally passed out on my floor. And I woke up, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds later or so, and was like, what the heck just happened? So get back to school that my junior year, that fall, and it just doesn't go away. Comes occasionally. It's really bad when I'm working out. Got to a point where I couldn't stand. One day I was crawling up my stairs to my house, and my roommate saw me.
Physically crawling, like on all
Physically
fours?
crawling, and my roommate saw me and was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "My leg hurts." And he's like, "Dude, your leg must really hurt." And he made me call my parents that day.
I just was surprised because I didn't know he had experienced any pain at all. He hadn't shared any of that over the summer with us at all. Just never spoke about it. So he calls us and we said, we know Dr. Mike real well, and so we asked him to take a look. What should we do? Dr. Mike says, "Hey, we can do an MRI if you want to. I mean, I can just take a look at it and drain it." Thank God, he decided to do the MRI, and so we had a look at it. And he calls us back that Friday and says, "Hey, I got the stuff back. Come on over." And I just was thinking to myself, "This is going to his house around 7:30 or something like that. What's the deal with this? It just doesn't make any sense to me." It never crossed my mind that it could be cancer. And all of a sudden, my wife or I, she says it was her. I think it was me, but whatever. I said, if this could be this could be cancer. Do you think that's what it is? I was like, you gotta be, no, that just doesn't happen to us. It doesn't happen to our family. And so I just, we just remember leaving and going over there, and then Mike brought it up right away and just said, "This is what we think it is," and I just broke down crying. It was just a very shocking moment.
I was mind blown. Couldn't process anything. So that really felt like an out-of-body experience to me. I remember just kind of going into a fog of he was talking, like looking around at my mom and dad and my sister, and they're all crying, and I'm just like, I have no idea how to react or respond. And I remember like kind of coming to it, like coming up for air out of the fog and being like, okay. He said cancer. He said osteosarcoma, and he said, chemotherapy. That was the start of, our journey as a family at 21.
It's how you handle those things that shape you. It can tear you apart or bring you together. This brought us together.
I think one of the things when you talk to anyone that's been through this, it's how quickly things start to happen afterwards, right? Time stops for a second when you hear those words, and then immediately things just start sort of rolling forward and people spring into action. And so what happened next? I mean, did you go to the hospital? What happened?
So I was back on break, or that, just fall break that weekend. I went back to school immediately, picked up my stuff, said goodbye to my roommates, my housemates, my best friends, told all them briefly, and took as much luggage as we could get in the car and drove back home. We were in the hospital meeting with Dr. Marison on Tuesday morning, and that's when everything started really, really rapidly going into play. So our whole family went in together, mom, dad, and I have 3 siblings, 1 of 4. We were all in the doctor's office together with Dr. Marison. Phenomenal experience to have everybody there. Everybody's asking these questions. We're all learning because we have no idea about this world, the cancer world.
Yeah, and the worst thing you can do is just start Googling.
Exactly. So Dr. Marison laid it out, and he's, we're going to do 10 weeks of chemotherapy. We're going to do a massive surgery to take cancer out, and then we're going to do 6 more months of chemotherapy. So we got you for a year, and, then we're going to give you your life back.
Did you walk out of there feeling, wow, this is going to be a hard road, but I feel like I've got the best team around me, I've got my family around me? Like, were you feeling confident, or were you feeling scared, angry? How were you feeling?
I think there was just a sense of hope. We come from a faith-based background, and so I remember that night, Friday night, really getting together, and we all just prayed for a couple hours as a family, and that was really intimate. And that provided like the foundation for where we were going to go in the future. So there was comfort with, my medical practitioners. just because I knew that James was the best. Comfort and hope in, our future.
I just remember thinking, what kind of life will my son have? What does this mean for him? How long will it be? What will it be? What kind of life will he ever be able to have children? Will he ever be able to get married and have all the things that I've been able to experience in life? Because you want those things for him so desperately. You want him to enjoy life. You want him to have the goodness of life, the greatness of life. Those things are all fears, and not knowing, and before you come into this, you really don't know much about it. Cancer is a tight community. The moment, this is middle of October 15, basically, and like from November, right before we started, did biopsy and started his chemo, we had 3 meals a week through May, and they were scheduled out all the way.
Yeah, meal trains strong in Upper Arlington.
And we had people come by and cut our grass. People come by and plant shrubs, plant flowers, cut our shrubs down. And all that. They knew we were busy, and so they just did stuff. Just were giving.
I went through 10 weeks of chemotherapy, and that first group of chemotherapy really wrecked me. I mean, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, everything. And I just was, just weak and didn't know what the future looked like. And then my surgery, which was January 19th, 2011, just took it to another level. Because then I did this massive surgery to remove the cancer in my leg, starting to slowly recover, relearning how to walk, and then starting chemo again a couple weeks after that, and brutal chemo. That was like the lowest I'd ever been. I went from, I was like 6'1", 185, 190 when I entered into chemo. And right around March time when I was, still recovering from my surgery, I was in the low 130s. That's barbaric. I'm hoping that's why we're a part of organizations like this, where immunotherapy is the next thing that's going to really change the landscape. That was the lowest point, that like kind of end of February, March area. And I remember thinking to myself in the hospital bed of just like, I couldn't get up. I couldn't move in my bed. I really was sensitive to light and sound. The chemotherapy just really messed with me. And I would just sit in my hospital. I would lay in my hospital bed in a dark, cold, empty room alone. That was the first time I was like, if I'm going to die, it's going to be this week. That week, I remember I told my sister and my family members to just pray for clarity mentally. I couldn't break through the noise of everything that was going on. And within a couple days, I was a new person. The fog cleared, the cloud had lifted, I reawoke and saw the hope again. So, it was within a matter of a couple days of really hitting rock bottom to being really uplifted and supported by a community, just really feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it through this. There is going to be a future for Jared Sylvester.
It was more survival than actually living. He has a positive attitude, trying to do things. He was appreciative. But it really wasn't a sense where he wasn't planning for his future. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He was in between college. His friends had all graduated by that time. He was done with chemo and all that sort of stuff. And it was sort of like this fog of, what am I doing? All my friends are gone. If I go back to school, I don't know anybody. And it's a totally different kind of environment. So it's just really, really difficult. Because I asked myself, how you doing? He says, okay. He says, Dad, I haven't dreamed for a long time. That gives you hope to dream about your future and things. He says, I haven't dreamed anything, but this is the first time after he met Melissa, his now wife. He says, I can dream.
That's awesome. So Jared, let's talk about Melissa and, the person that made you dream again. And, obviously you guys started dating and ultimately ended up getting married, but she was that was all happening sort of in this sort of second half of your life, sort of the post-cancer version. So can you just talk about her and sort of how she helped you and supported you just through your own journey?
Just really for those couple years was in a weird spot. And so meeting Melissa, actually we met in a wedding together. She was the maid of honor and I was in the groomsmen party. And I always say that I was the first single guy in line. Yeah, we just connected because her mom actually at that time was going through a sarcoma diagnosis, and she was at the end stage of her battle. And that year, we met in June of 2015, and her mom passed away in September of 2015. And so, just brought us together that weekend of the wedding, because she said she was introduced to me as, hey, this is Mike's friend that had cancer. You guys should talk. And going through what I went through, I was able to emotionally relate to what her family was experiencing, and we just automatically connected. We spent 12 hours together the next day after the wedding, and then our second date was another 8 or 10 hours. And we knew at that point it was game over. From there, it's just been a joy. I mean, it's just hard to put into words, really, what Melissa, my wife, has meant in my life. I mean, we dated long distance for a little bit. We, as my dad said, at the onset, we were very unsure if there was going to be a future for me, if I was going to get married or have another life in the future, and we were very unsure about kids.
I think it's, I don't know if taboo is the right word, but young guys that get diagnosed with cancer often deal with infertility, and people don't like to talk about it. Guys don't talk about it, and I battled it myself, and we ended up adopting. You recently have been blessed with a baby girl yourself. So, what was that like? That whole journey of finding out Melissa was pregnant to witnessing the birth of your baby.
You said it, Joe. It's just a blessing. This is a little life that's a miracle, and all life is a miracle. And we're just so grateful for little Lucy Michelle Sylvester. And we learned about her existence unexpectedly. We were never expected to have kids, and so my wife randomly just wasn't feeling well for a good amount of time, and actually was in Colorado for a little bit. And then after her trip, got back and was like, I think I'm going to take a pregnancy test. I'm feeling this weird. And it came back positive, and I was like, there's no way. I do not believe this. You got to take another one. And so she took another one, and I still did not believe it. I was like, there's something wrong. You're reading it wrong. There's no way. I know 100%. I've closed this door. There's no way. And ironically, about a week or two later, I had already scheduled an appointment with our fertility specialist doctor. I still went through with that appointment, and they told me over the phone after they kind of looked through all the results and said, hey, you're not going to be able to have a kid naturally. You're not going to be able to get pregnant naturally. And on the phone, I said, actually, we found out my wife's pregnant. And so the nurse and doctor were just floored. They were super excited, as we were, but it was all a shock. We were amazed. And then the whole pregnancy process has just been a joy and a blessing. And then seeing her little Lucy come into the world, I can't imagine, thinking that this would be a reality all those years ago, even 5 years ago on the bike, 10 years ago in the doctor's office, getting the cancer diagnosis, this little one, we're just so grateful.
Hey, Lou. Hey, Miss Lucy girl.
So Pelotonia had been going on for a couple of years, and obviously you've seen it in town, you've heard about people doing it, but you weren't in a spot in your life where you could do it. So sort of that first time you decided to sign up, what was that like? What were you thinking?
I signed up with Team Buckeye because I was still finishing up school then at that time at Ohio State, and didn't really train with anybody, kind of went in ISO, just said, I really want to do this. Seems like a phenomenal organization, and just wanted to jump in. And that first year, 2015, I get to, the start of the weekend, Friday night, the kickoff, and I felt like I had walked into a party celebrating, my success, my journey. I felt like everybody that was surrounded me was my best friend, because you walk into an environment and everybody is there to conquer one thing. And it gave me chills. I remember being so hyped up, and I had no idea what the ride was going to be like. This is just getting free food on Friday night. And so the whole weekend was, it was honestly one of the best experiences of my entire life. To feel so supported tangibly by the volunteers, by the staff, by the other riders, by the virtual riders, by people that are there supporting you that aren't riding the next day. And then the ride Saturday for me, I did 45 and actually rode with Dr. Mayerson, my surgeon who saved my life. To see everybody on the side of the road, holding up signs in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, just outside of Columbus, putting sprinklers out on the road, on a hot day, handing out peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at the stops. I just felt like this is where I was supposed to be. This was a family to me.
That's incredible. So, what was it like crossing the finish line with the guy that saved your life?
Yeah, it was pretty special. We laughed because he pushed me really hard the first half, and I was just so amped up throughout the ride.
A lot of adrenaline out of the starting gates for sure.
We were cruising there at the end, and just continually gaining momentum and crossing that finish line with the doctor that saved my life from the James. Brought tears to my eyes and his eyes, my family's eyes, and just a remarkable experience to share. This is what he went into practicing medicine for, to save individuals' lives and to see them grow and thrive into, these individuals with purpose and drive in the future.
We didn't know he was riding with Dr. Mayerson at the same time. And we were like, when we saw him come up, we were like, my wife and I turned and said, wow, look at that. Dr. Mayerson there with Jared. And then Jared, he crossed the finish line, he throws his hands up in the air and just starts screaming like he won the whole race. It's like, I do a horrendous job taking pictures, but that one I got, which is sort of cool. I just took my phone, just tapped it 20 times, trying to get everything. And so I got a really good shot of him crossing the line, both hands in the air, just yelling, screaming that he's finished it, and it was a great moment for him. And then to see him cross at Dr. Mayerson was just like, we've known this guy for a number of years now, and it just sort of melted everything together perfectly.
So let's talk about how David, you ended up riding for the first time this past year, and what made you sort of jump into the deep end of the pool and hop on the bike and do that, and what was that experience like for you?
I always sort of wanted to do it, but I just never felt I really could. It didn't seem like it was astronomical amount of miles to ride, but I wasn't a bike rider at all. So, but this time I just wanted to, this year, I wanted to do it the previous year, but something came, I think we had a reunion I had to go to or something like that. But this year, I remember just turning to my wife and said, I want to do this. I want to connect with Jared. I want to do this with him. This is still a battle we go through. And he, every quarter, gets scanned again. We gotta do this thing over and over again. So I want to go through this with him again. I want to experience this with him. And I thought it'd be really neat to get some of our family members together to do it with him, because I know he's done it with Joel, and he did it the year before. Last year he did it with his wife Melissa. They did it together. And so this year I wanted to do it, and I needed to make that decision. So I made the decision, went out and bought a bike. My wife looks at me and says, You'll never be consistent in this. She has great faith in me. In the process, my other son, Drew, decided to join us as well. So that made it all even better. And so we went, and so we decided to do this together. And Jared felt like he didn't even need to work out. He knew all this stuff. He's
a pro at this
He could do
point.
50 miles, no question. I'm sitting there worried to death about it. But it was important for me to as a family for me to be involved with Jared again in this. This is not over. This is something it's part of our life for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, for the rest.
And so I wanted to do this, and then on top of that, as I said, people have just done so much for us through the years about this, and cared so much, and prayed for Jared, and quarterly, we still go through all this stuff again, and so to give back a little bit, to participate in this thing, to feel like I'm helping out others who go through this as well. That's a big thing. Jared always threatened to write a book called The Gift of Cancer. And part of that is because of what we were able to experience as a family. We found a closeness, a tightness that would not be there. Jared found a purpose in life that he would never have had without this.
My message for anybody going through these seasons, this journey of cancer, is that there is hope, that there are people there to support you. So I think, I've learned a lot from my journey. I've learned so much more from the people that I interact with, even up to this day that I volunteer with. I'm incredibly grateful for my journey, and again, just feel overly blessed and to have that ability to say that. And it's not necessarily the way for everybody, this cancer journey, but we've just been very fortunate in this life, and just learned a ton, and continually trying to learn from the well of the cancer journey.
Jared and David's optimism and joy is something that's inspiring to me, and we hope you feel the same way after hearing their amazing story. We, of course, want to thank them and all of our podcast guests for giving their time and stories to encourage others in our community. Before we continue, we want to thank our major funding partners again: Peggy and Richard Santulli, the American Electric Power Foundation, Huntington, and the L Brands Foundation. It's because of them every penny raised goes directly to innovative cancer research. This is what you can expect on the next episode of One Goal.
But what I gave him was a Superman t-shirt. And I wrote him a letter, and I said, in my life, when I've worn this shirt, it makes me feel invincible. And hopefully you can take some of my strength for your journey ahead.
You've been listening to One Goal, a podcast from Pelotonia. The first half of Season 2 will be hosted by me, Chief Operating Officer of Pelotonia, Joe Apgar, with interview and production scheduling by our marketing and communications team duo, Emily Smith and Gabby Blauer. Produced, mixed, and sound designed at the studios of Wessler Media by Vince Tornero. Additional mastering by Joey Gerwin at Orange Judio. Special thank you to all of our guests for being so open and willing to share their amazing stories. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as that will help others hear these empowering journeys. If you're curious about joining the Pelotonia community, please see the link in the episode notes or visit pelotonia.org. That's pelotonia.org.